Hi everyone, this is Jura Daubenspeck on behalf of Building Blocks. We're sitting down today with the lovely Amy Kress, who is about to release her second album called Fly on July 29th. So Amy, thank you for sitting down with me.
Thank you for having me.
First of all, congratulations. This is a really big feat.
Thank you.
How does it feel to be recording this?
It's really exciting to finally be releasing this album and getting this music out there. It's sort of been a labor of love for several years, so I'm really excited. A couple of years, I guess, so I'm really excited to be able to do this now.
So when did this process start for this album?
We began recording this, I guess that would have been 14? Yeah, September of 2014. This was my second album that we started with, and unfortunately it sort of coincided right when I was diagnosed with breast cancer for the second time. So it's a really eclectic album. We set out to write a dance album, and then it turned into sort of dance album meets chemotherapy, writing albums at 2 a.m. And it got really interesting. So yeah, it took me a while to get through it, but it was also my therapy. It was my therapy album to just get through my whole cancer experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you wrote all the songs for this album?
I co-wrote almost all of them with Glenn Sawyer, who works at the Spot Studio. He's a producer here. And I think on the album, the only song, Fly, is the only one that I actually wrote in its entirety. Still produced by Glenn, but Glenn was co-writer for everything else with me on this one.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So anybody that knows you knows that you have a very powerful story.
Yeah.
And you're very candid about, your experiences, and you share that with your fans. So I'm wondering, with this upcoming album, Fly, what kinds of themes will be popping up into the album? What kinds of things can people expect?
This album actually turned into more of a electronic feel, a dance album, because my previous album, Secret Music, was on the low-key side, and I really liked having big music. So that was the objective when we started, and we wrote a couple songs. Then I was diagnosed, and so we still tried to keep the whole dance album feel, but with the lyrics of what I was going through. So Heartbeat is all about your heart just stopping, and oh my God, the pressure is too much. Or My Fears and I is about my fears and I just facing the hole that is cancer and everything like that was very scary. So it's sort of an eclectic feel. It's a dance. It's a powerful album. It's got interesting introspective singer-songwriter kind of lyrics to it, though. So it's eclectic, that's for sure.
So have you felt like with this album you're kind of evolving from the first one?
Oh, most definitely. It was definitely an evolution, and it was objective, or the object of it was to write a specific type of album, which I've never done. I've never tried to write a specific type of song. It was just whatever mood I'm in, there's the song that comes out. But this was definitely a healing album, and this is what, I'd be in the midst of chemo and feeling absolutely sick, and I'd have a day at the studio where I would come in and record, and I was feeling awful, but it was so cool. I'd try to sing one song and I wasn't able to get through it, and so they said, just go take a shower in the master bathroom there and in the studio, and just get steamed up and try and loosen everything up so I could come back in and sing it again. So I think Glenn and Rich too here at the Spot understood how important it was for me to be recording, and how important it was for me to have something to do and something to look forward to help get me through chemo.
Definitely. It sounds like it's a very cathartic healing process.
Exactly.
I'm wondering about the title of the album, Fly, if that has any symbolism.
Sort of. It was just sort of a way of saying that I'm stretching my wings and spreading my wings and sort of going off and doing my own thing a little bit more than what I was when I first started doing this. My objective towards this is different. I'm much more professionally oriented now towards music, whereas before I think it was a hobby and it was something I really enjoyed. And here I've decided I'd try to make a living with it, so we'll see how it goes.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to that point, if somebody had asked you years ago, if you thought that you would have been sitting right here talking about the release of your second album, do you think, would you have ever expected it?
I would have geeked out. No, I would have absolutely geeked out. I'm geeking out now that you put it that way, actually. That's kind of cool. No, even 3 years ago, if you had told me I would even have one album, that I had even recorded 5 songs, I would have not believed it. So life has a funny way of turning around, and I've been very fortunate.
Absolutely. I mean, when I first heard, the title of the album, Fly, I just thought about your resiliency. Since I met you, you've just had this very powerful spirit, and I love the fact that you mix it with electronic music and dance music, because it's almost like mixing two things that almost seem very different, putting them together.
Oh, for sure.
I think that is really going to go very far, and it's going to really relate to people in a number of ways.
I think it's a really powerful thing. The thing about chemotherapy is like you're facing your mortality, you're facing the end of your life, and every time I go to a session and do chemo, it's so difficult on the spirit and the soul. So when I owned it, I had a 1969 Camaro, and I drove that every time to and from my chemo sessions, because just having that kind of power and that kind of life and vitality under you, going to that, like I love the juxtaposition of life versus death. And so a dance album while going through chemo is just that. It's just it's a musical Camaro is what that is right there. And it's a big FU to chemo and to cancer and to being put down. And so that was just sort of a way of just asserting myself and saying, no, absolutely, I have life left in me. Absolutely. And here it is in music.
And you've just channeled it into your art, which is, I think it's very magical. And it's very relatable, because art is a very healing thing.
It is.
So how many songs will be on this album?
8.
Yeah. And I know that you just recently on your blog on amykressmusic.com, you talked about Oh No, which was the most recent music video and single that was released. Are there any other songs on the album that you would mind talking about?
Oh, they're all good in different ways. They're all sort of my favorite song when I write them. Like Lush, for example, I wrote the lyrics when I was 22, which is about a woman who just goes into the bar and gets drunk all the time and gets picked up by men and is looking for fulfillment and clearly doesn't find it. Things like Radiate. My husband and I went through a divorce during this time, and so Radiate is just a straight up kiss my ass kind of song. And so there's chemo, there's divorce, there's everything in this album. If there's some emotionally compelling component to it, I've got it in here somewhere.
Absolutely.
So yeah, they're all fun.
So do you have any upcoming shows?
We are working on that. I do have one up in Broomfield in August. Just various things that I'll be doing, but nothing set in stone yet. I have a workshop that I'm going to next week in Nashville, Songwriters Workshop. So I've been putting a lot of my effort into that and getting really excited for that.
Absolutely.
But nothing on the books just yet.
So in terms of final messages for people, what to expect with the album, what kinds of kind of pre-release announcements? Do you have any?
I think it's just a whole different aspect of Amy Kress that you're going to be seeing on this one versus Secret Music. It's a very different feel, and yet it's still very much me and my words and components. And so I really hope that people will listen to it and enjoy it and understand it for what it is. And it is very unusual in terms of the content and perhaps the delivery of that content. But I think hopefully that will have a lot of appeal to people.
Definitely.
So, yeah.
Well, I, for one, am very excited to hear what's in store for you.
Thank you.
So once again, Amy Kress, new album called Fly, to be released July 29th, and you can access her music on Facebook, on her website, amykressmusic.com, and you also have that really awesome blog that's linked up to your website. So if you really want some cool insights as to what's going on in the mind of Amy, you can definitely check that out.
And it's on Spotify and Amazon, MP3, all that stuff too. So it's everywhere. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.